If you walked into my childhood home, the first thing you'd notice wouldn't be the smell of cookies or the sound of a TV. It would be your own reflection. My mother, Patricia, had a thing for mirrors. They were everywhere, in the hallway, the dining room, the kitchen, and even a massive floor-to-ceiling one in the living room that made the house feel like a dance studio. But these mirrors weren't there for the guests. They were there for her. Growing up as Patricia's daughter was like being the background character in a movie where she was always the star. My mom was 52, but if you saw her from behind, you'd swear she was 25. She had been a professional model in her 20s, and she never, ever let anyone forget it. She didn't just walk into a room, she made an entrance. She didn't just talk, she performed. Every single morning, like clockwork, the performance began. She spent 3 hours on her hair and makeup. I'm not kidding, 3 hours. While I was rushing to get ready for work, barely having time to throw my hair into a messy bun and slap on some tinted moisturizer, my mother was in front of her vanity. She had rows of expensive creams, brushes that cost more than my groceries, and a lighting setup that made her look like she was on a movie set. She worked out 5 days a week with a personal trainer who looked like he belonged on a magazine cover, and her closet was filled with designer dresses that she treated like holy relics. I, on the other hand, was plain. That was her favorite word for me. She'd say it with a sigh, like she was disappointed that her DNA hadn't produced a second version of herself. "Oh, Emma," she'd say, tucking a strand of my mousy brown hair behind my ear while looking at her own reflection in the mirror behind me. "You have such a sweet face. It's a shame you don't do more with it. You're just so plain." For years, I believed her. I felt like a dull gray rock sitting next to a diamond. But the real problem started when I began to date. You see, Patricia didn't just want to be the most beautiful woman in the room. She wanted to be the only woman in the room that men looked at. It didn't matter if the man was the mailman, the grocery clerk, or, worst of all, my boyfriend. To her, every man was a judge in a beauty pageant that never ended, and she refused to lose. The pattern was always the same. I'd meet a guy, we'd start dating, and things would go great for a month or two. Then, eventually, I'd have to bring him home. The moment a guy stepped through our front door, Patricia transformed. It was like someone flipped a switch. Suddenly, she wasn't the cold, critical mother who complained about my outfit. She was the fun mom, the hot mom. She'd change into her tightest, most expensive dress, usually something with a low neckline or a slit up the leg, and she'd float into the room smelling like a flower shop. She'd give these hugs that lasted way too long. She'd lean in close when she talked, touching their arm or their shoulder, laughing at every little thing they said like it was the funniest joke in the history of the world. And the comments? God, the comments were the worst. "Oh, Emma, you didn't tell me he was so handsome. I might have to keep him for myself," she'd giggle, winking at the poor guy while I stood there feeling my stomach do backflips. By the time dinner was over, the guy would usually be red-faced and confused. And then the seeds would start. After he left, Patricia would corner me in the kitchen. "He's nice, honey," she'd say, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "But don't you think he's a little boring? I mean, a guy like that, he's going to get tired of someone so quiet. You need someone who can keep up with you. Or maybe he just needs someone with a bit more spark." She'd do this every time. She'd flirt with them to see if she could get a reaction. Then she'd try to make me feel insecure, so I'd break up with them before they could, inevitably, leave me for someone better. And if that didn't work, she'd go behind my back. She'd find their Instagram, their Facebook, or even their phone number and start sending friendly messages. It worked 3 times. 3 guys I really liked ended up fading away because the drama with my mom was just too much. They didn't know how to handle a 50-year-old woman hitting on them while they were trying to date her daughter. It was weird, it was gross, and it made me want to crawl into a hole and stay there. Then came Tyler. Tyler was different. He was a second-grade teacher at the elementary school near my apartment. He had this messy blonde hair, glasses that were always sliding down his nose, and the kindest eyes I'd ever seen. He wasn't some hotshot lawyer or a gym rat. He was just a good, genuine guy who loved his students and spent his weekends volunteering at the animal shelter. When we started dating, I was terrified. I kept him away from my mother for 4 whole months. We went to movies, we had picnics in the park, we stayed up late talking about our favorite books. For the first time in my life, I felt like someone really saw me. Not as Patricia's plain daughter, but as Emma. "You're beautiful," he told me one night while we were sitting on his couch. "You're just saying that," I muttered, looking down at my lap. "My mom says I'm plain." Tyler took my chin in his hand and forced me to look at him. "Your mom is wrong, Emma. You have this light in you that she'll never have. You don't need 3 hours of makeup to be stunning." I cried when he said that. I really thought he was the one. But eventually, I couldn't hide him anymore. It was my aunt's birthday, and Patricia was throwing a big Sunday dinner. She'd been pestering me for weeks. "When am I going to meet this mystery man, Emma? Are you ashamed of him? Or are you ashamed of me?" So, with a heavy heart and a pit in my stomach, I brought Tyler home. I warned him before we went in. "My mom is a lot," I said, gripping his hand in the driveway. "She's going to flirt with you. She's going to be inappropriate. Please, just try to ignore it." Tyler laughed, thinking I was exaggerating. "Emma, I've dealt with 7-year-olds all day. I think I can handle your mom." He was wrong. The moment we walked in, Patricia was standing at the top of the stairs like she was waiting for a camera crew to start filming. She was wearing a silk emerald green dress that was so tight she probably had to hold her breath to zip it up. Her hair was perfectly curled, and she had on her expensive perfume, the one that smells like lilies in desperation. "Oh, you must be Tyler," she cried, practically gliding down the stairs. She didn't just shake his hand. She grabbed both of his hands, pulled him toward her, and gave him a hug that made me want to scream. She pressed her face against his and whispered loud enough for me to hear, "My goodness, Emma didn't do you justice. You're a total hunk." Tyler looked at me over her shoulder, his eyes wide and panicked. I just looked at the floor. Dinner was a nightmare. Patricia spent the entire 2 hours ignoring me and focusing entirely on Tyler. She asked him about his job, but every time he answered, she'd find a way to make it about her. Elementary school. Oh, how sweet. I used to do some volunteer work with children back when I was modeling in Paris. They loved my hair, you know. They called me the Golden Lady. She leaned across the table, her neckline dipping dangerously low, and touched Tyler's hand. "You must have so much patience, Tyler. I bet you're great with your hands." "Emma, honey, you're so lucky. Most guys her age are so immature." I barely ate a bite. I just watched as my mother systematically tried to charm my boyfriend right in front of my face. She giggled. She tossed her hair. She touched his arm every chance she got. She was 52 years old, acting like a 20-year-old at a frat party. It was pathetic, but it was also working, or at least, it looked like it was. Tyler was being polite, because that's who he was, but I could see him sweating. When Tyler finally got up to use the bathroom, Patricia leaned over to me. Her smile vanished instantly. "He's a little soft, don't you think?" she whispered. "He's a teacher, Emma. He's never going to make any real money. Is that really what you want? To be a poor teacher's wife? You could do so much better if you just tried a little harder with your hair." Before I could respond, Tyler came back, and the fun mom mask was back on. When we finally left, the silence in the car was thick. Tyler didn't say anything for a long time. "I told you," I said softly, staring out the window. "I know," Tyler replied, his voice sounding tired. "But Emma, that was intense. I've never had someone's mom hit on me like that, especially not while their daughter was sitting right there. She's a narcissist, Tyler. She can't help it. She needs everyone to love her." "It's not just that she needs love," Tyler said. "It's like she wants to take things from you." It felt mean. I hoped that would be the end of it. I hoped we could just move past it. But a week later, I noticed Tyler was acting strange. He wasn't texting as much. He seemed distracted when we were together. My heart started to sink. I knew this feeling. It was the fading away stage. We were sitting in his apartment on a Tuesday night. The TV was on, but neither of us was watching. "Tyler, what's going on?" I finally asked. "Is it my mom?" Tyler sighed and rubbed his face. Then he reached for his phone. "I wasn't going to tell you because I didn't want to cause a fight between you and your family. But this is getting weird, Emma." He handed me the phone. My heart stopped. There were dozens of texts from a number I knew by heart. My mother. 11:30 p.m. "Hi, Tyler. Just saw a documentary about teachers and thought of you. You're such a hero. We should grab coffee sometime and talk about how we can help Emma's confidence." She's so lucky to have you. 2:15 p.m. Sending you a little sunshine. Photo of Patricia in a bikini by the pool. It's so hot today, wish you were here to jump in. 9 a.m. Good morning, handsome. Hope the kids are behaving today. Remember, if you ever need a break from the plain life, my door is always open. Zoxo Patricia. I felt like I was going to throw up. The bikini photo was the final straw. It wasn't just a friendly photo, it was a professional-looking shot she'd clearly had someone take specifically to send to him. She was actively trying to seduce my boyfriend. She's been texting me every day, Tyler said, his voice full of pity. I stopped responding after the second day, but she doesn't stop. She calls me. She sends these photos. Emma, I really like you. I do. But I can't be part of this. This is toxic. I can talk to her. I cried, grabbing his arm. I'll tell her to stop. I'll go no contact if I have to. But Tyler was already shaking his head. He looked at me with those kind eyes, but there was no spark left in them. Just sadness. It's not just her, Emma. It's the fact that this is your life. I want a normal relationship. I want to be able to go to Sunday dinner without feeling like I'm in a middle school drama. I want a partner whose mother doesn't send me nudes. I'm sorry, but I can't do this. He broke up with me right then and there. I drove home in a daze. I didn't even cry at first. I was just numb. I walked into my apartment, the one I still shared with my mother because I couldn't afford to live on my own yet, and I found her sitting on the couch, sipping a glass of white wine. She was wearing a silk robe and looking at her nails. Oh, hi honey, she said, not even looking up. How's Tyler? Still teaching those little brats. He broke up with me, I said, my voice shaking. Patricia finally looked up. For a split second, I saw it, a flash of pure, smug satisfaction in her eyes. It was gone in an instant, replaced by a fake look of concern, but I saw it. She was happy. She had won. Oh no. I'm so sorry, sweetie, she said, standing up to give me one of her fake hugs. But honestly, I told you he wasn't right for you. He was too simple. You need someone with a bit more class. Someone who can appreciate a real woman. She patted my cheek and walked toward the kitchen, humming a little tune to herself. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I looked at the massive mirror in the living room. I saw myself, pale, tired, with red eyes and messy hair. And I saw my mother in the reflection behind me, admiring her own silhouette as she poured another glass of wine. I realized then that if I ever wanted to be happy, if I ever wanted to have a man of my own, I couldn't just play defense anymore. I couldn't just keep hiding my boyfriends and hoping for the best. I had to go on the offensive. I needed to teach Patricia a lesson she would never forget. I needed to show her exactly how it felt to be the one who got played. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found a name I hadn't called in 3 years. Alex Russo. Alex was the only person I knew who was as good at acting as my mother. He was handsome, he was charming, and most importantly, he would never, ever fall for her. I hit the call button. Alex, I said when he picked up. It's Emma. I have a job for you, and I think you're going to love it. As I explained the situation to Alex, I looked back at the mirror. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel plain. I felt dangerous. The game was on. And this time, I wasn't going to let my mother win. When Alex Russo walked into the coffee shop 3 days later, it was like the air in the room changed. He was wearing a simple leather jacket and jeans, but on him, they looked like $1,000,000. Alex was the kind of guy who didn't just walk, he glided. He had thick, dark hair that was perfectly messy, green eyes that seemed to sparkle with mischief, and a jawline that looked like it had been carved by a professional sculptor. I sat there with my latte, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement. Alex and I hadn't seen each other in years, but when he spotted me, he broke into a grin that could have lit up a stadium. Emma, you look stressed, he said, pulling me into a massive hug. Which is exactly why I'm here. Tell me everything. Who are we destroying today? We sat down and I poured it all out. I told him about the years of playing comments. I told him about the boyfriends who vanished. I told him about Tyler, the sweet teacher who couldn't handle my mother's bikini selfies. By the time I was finished, Alex wasn't just listening. He was leaning forward, his eyes narrow and focused. So let me get this straight, Alex said, stirring his coffee. Your mom thinks she's the ultimate prize. She thinks every man you bring home is just waiting for a chance to upgrade to her. And she's willing to blow up your life just to prove she still got it. Exactly, I sighed. I'm tired of losing, Alex. I'm tired of being the background character in my own life. I need her to focus on someone who won't break. Someone who can handle her games without actually falling for her. Alex leaned back and laughed. It was a loud, beautiful sound. Emma, honey, you called the right person. As you know, I am very, very gay. I have a wonderful boyfriend named Marcus who thinks this is the funniest thing he's ever heard. I've spent 4 years in theater school learning how to play a straight guy who's head over heels in love. And honestly, I've dealt with divas my entire career. Your mom is just another leading lady who needs to be handled. You're sure about this? I asked. She's persistent. She'll text you. She'll send you photos. She'll try to get you alone. Let her, Alex said, his grin widening. The more she tries, the more we win. Here's the deal. I'll be your perfect boyfriend. I'll be successful, charming, and totally obsessed with you. We'll make her think I'm the biggest fish she's ever tried to catch. And while she's busy trying to hook me, she'll be leaving your actual life alone. We spent the next 4 hours training. It felt like we were planning a bank heist. We came up with a rock-solid backstory. We had been reconnected through mutual friends at a gallery opening. We'd been dating for 2 months, but it felt like 2 years. We even took a bunch of photos together. Alex looking at me like I was the only woman in the world, us laughing over a shared dessert, a shot of us holding hands in the park. We need to post these on Instagram, Alex instructed. She needs to see that I'm already deep in the Emma fan club before I even meet her. It'll make her competitive. She won't be able to stand that I'm this into you. For the next week, we performed on social media. I'd never been much for posting my private life, but I followed Alex's lead. I posted a photo of a bouquet of flowers he sent to my office. I posted a blurry shot of us at dinner with the caption, "The best nights are the ones where we don't even look at our phones." My mother, of course, was the first to like every single photo. She didn't comment, but I knew she was watching. I could practically hear the gears turning in her head from the other side of the apartment. Finally, the day came. The big introduction. I told Patricia that Alex was coming over for dinner on Saturday. I made sure to talk him up. He's an actor, Mom. Very successful. He's been in a few national commercials, and he's doing a play downtown. He's amazing. I really think this could be the one. Patricia just hummed, filing her nails. An actor? How dramatic. Well, I'm sure he's very interesting. Saturday evening arrived, and the house was a war zone. My mother had spent 5 hours on her look. She was wearing a dress that was basically a second skin, dark purple, silky, and cut so low it was a miracle she was staying in it. She had on her big diamond earrings, and had done her hair in these Hollywood waves that probably took a gallon of hairspray to stay up. She was pacing the living room like a tiger in a cage. Is he almost here, Emma? I hope he's on time. I can't stand men who are late. The doorbell rang at exactly 7 p.m. I opened the door, and there stood Alex. He looked incredible. He was wearing a dark navy blazer over a crisp white shirt, no tie, and well-fitted slacks. He looked like he'd stepped right off a yacht. He had a bottle of expensive wine in one hand and a single red rose in the other. "Hey, beautiful," he said, leaning in to give me a kiss on the cheek that looked incredibly romantic but was actually just him whispering, "Game on," into my ear. I led him into the living room. "Mom, this is Alex." Patricia didn't just walk over. She floated. She did that model walk, shoulders back, hips swaying, and stopped exactly 3 feet in front of him. She took a long, slow look at him, from his expensive shoes up to his perfectly styled hair. I saw her eyes light up. She had found her next target. "Alex," she purred, extending a hand like she expected him to kiss it. Emma didn't tell me she'd found a movie star. Alex didn't kiss her hand, but he took it and held it a beat too long, giving her a dazzling smile. "And you must be Patricia." Emma told me her mother was beautiful, but I honestly thought she was exaggerating. Now I see she was actually being modest. I watched my mother practically melt. She giggled, a high, girlish sound that made my skin crawl. "Oh, stop. You're far too charming. Come sit. Let's have some wine." Dinner was a masterclass in psychological warfare. Alex was perfect. He was attentive to me. He'd reach over and squeeze my hand or tuck a piece of hair behind my ear, but he kept his main focus on Patricia. He asked her about her modeling career with such fake awe that I almost had to cough to hide my laughter. Paris in the 80s? Alex said, leaning forward. Patricia, that must have been the peak of fashion. You must have had every designer in the city begging to dress you. Oh, it was a whirlwind, Patricia sighed, swirling her wine. I worked with everyone. But of course, once I had Emma, I had to give it all up. It's the sacrifice of being a mother, you know. She sighed dramatically, looking at me like I was a heavy backpack she'd been carrying for 20 years. Well, Alex said, looking back at her, I think the world lost a legend, but I'm glad you kept your spark. You have this energy, Patricia. It's very rare. You're so observant, she whispered, leaning so far across the table her hair was almost in the gravy. Emma's always been so quiet. I've tried to teach her how to have more presence, but some things just can't be taught, can they? True, Alex replied, giving her a wink that I knew was the bait. Some people are just born with the spotlight on them. By the time dessert was served, Patricia was in full predator mode. She was laughing too loud, touching Alex's arm every few seconds and making little digs at me to make herself look better. Emma's so lucky she found you, she told Alex while I was in the kitchen getting the coffee. She's usually so picky. I was worried she'd end up alone, honestly. She's very set in her ways. Not much for adventure. I find her very adventurous, Alex said loudly as I walked back into the room. She's the most interesting woman I've ever met. The look of annoyance that flashed across my mother's face was the best thing I'd seen all year. When Alex finally left that night, he gave me another romantic kiss and whispered, Check your phone in an hour. I walked back into the living room to find Patricia standing by the window, watching him drive away. She didn't look happy. She looked like a woman who had just seen a challenge she couldn't ignore. He's intense, she said, her voice tight. A bit full of himself, don't you think? Actors are always so vain. I love him, Mom, I said, trying to hide my smile. Love? Don't be silly, Emma. You've known him 2 months. And a man like that, he's going to get bored. He needs someone who can match his intensity, not someone who spends her Friday nights reading. She walked off to her bedroom without another word. An hour later, my phone buzzed. It was a screenshot from Alex. It was a text from an unknown number, but I knew the area code. It was my mother's second work phone that she used for her social media management. The text. Hi, Alex. It was so lovely meeting you tonight. You have such a fascinating career. I'd love to hear more about your upcoming play. Maybe we could grab a drink and I could give you some notes. I have a lot of friends in the industry. Let's keep this our little secret. Don't want to make Emma jealous. Winking face P. I stared at the screen. I knew she was fast, but this was a new record. She hadn't even waited 12 hours. What do? I texted Alex back. Now, Alex replied. We start the slow burn. I'm going to be busy but intrigued. I'm going to make her work for every single reply. We need to get her so obsessed with stealing me that she completely forgets to sabotage your real life. Over the next 2 weeks, the digital war was in full swing. Alex showed me every single message. Patricia was relentless. She sent him professional headshots from her modeling days. She sent him links to articles about theater. She even sent him a photo of her dinner one night with the caption, So much better than Emma's cooking, don't you think? Alex was a genius. He'd wait 6 hours to reply, then say something like, Wow, Patricia, you really do have a great eye for detail. Emma mentioned you were talented. He always brought it back to me, which drove her insane. It was like a game of cat and mouse, except the mouse was actually a lion in disguise. The escalation happened about 3 weeks into the plan. My mother started doing something she'd never done before, surprise visits to my apartment. I didn't live with her anymore. I'd moved out shortly after the Tyler disaster, thanks to a small promotion and a lot of budgeting, but she had a key for emergencies. I was sitting on my couch on a Tuesday night, catching up on some work, when the door swung open. Patricia marched in, carrying a bag of groceries and wearing a trench coat over what looked like a cocktail dress. Mom, what are you doing here? Oh, I was just in the neighborhood and I thought you might be hungry, she said, looking around the room like she was searching for something. Or someone. Is Alex here? No, he's at rehearsal. Why? Oh, no reason. I just thought, well, I brought some of that expensive cheese he liked at dinner. I thought I'd leave it for him. She stayed for 2 hours. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't ask about my job. She just talked about Alex. He's so busy, isn't he? An actor's life is so demanding. I bet he gets lonely. Does he talk about me? I mean, does he talk about the dinner? He says you're very memorable, Mom. She beamed. Memorable. Yes, that's a good word. As the weeks went on, I felt this weird mix of emotions. Part of me felt guilty. It was a cruel thing to do, in a way, to lead your own mother into a trap. But then I'd remember Tyler's face when he saw those bikini photos. I'd remember the 3 other guys who had disappeared because they were too weirded out to continue. I'd remember the plain comments that had echoed in my head for 20 years. This wasn't just a prank. It was self-defense. One night, Alex and I met up to review the latest evidence. We were at a small bar, away from any places my mother might frequent. She's getting desperate, Emma, Alex said, sliding his phone across the table. I looked at the latest message. It was a long, rambling text Patricia had sent at 1 a.m. The text, Alex, I have to be honest. I can't stop thinking about what you said. That some people are born for the spotlight. I feel like you and I are made of the same stardust. Emma is a lovely girl. She really is. But she's so grounded. She doesn't understand people like us. I'm going to be at that little bistro on 5th tomorrow at 2 p.m. I'd love it if you accidentally ran into me. We have so much to talk about. She's asking for a secret meeting. I whispered. Yep, Alex said. She's ready to make her move. She thinks she's finally cracked the code. She thinks I'm bored of you and looking for an upgrade. So what do we do? Do you go? Alex shook his head. No. If I go now, the game is over too soon. We need to push her further. I'm going to tell her I can't make it because I'm taking you on a surprise weekend getaway. That's going to make her absolutely lose her mind. A weekend getaway? Exactly. It'll make her realize that despite all her flirting, I'm still choosing you. It'll make her double down. She'll do something big, Emma. Something we can use to finally end this. I looked at Alex, and for the first time, I felt a little bit of fear. Not for me, but for what was coming. Patricia didn't handle rejection well. She didn't handle being second best at all. Are you sure we're ready for the explosion? I asked. Alex reached over and squeezed my hand. This time, it wasn't for the cameras. It was real. Emma, you spent 20 years being the one who got hurt. It's time to let her feel the weight of her own actions. Trust me, when this blows up, it's going to be spectacular. As I walked home that night, I saw my reflection in a shop window. I didn't look plain. I looked like someone who was finally taking charge of her own story. I knew the big revelation was coming. I knew my mother was about to walk right into a trap that would change our relationship forever. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of the mirror. I spent that entire fake weekend at my best friend's apartment, hiding out like a fugitive. Alex and I had timed everything perfectly. We had pre-recorded a bunch of videos and taken photos of us looking cozy by a fireplace a few days earlier. While I was actually sitting on a couch in my sweatpants eating cold pizza, my social media was telling a very different story. It showed me and Alex tucked away in a mountain cabin, completely cut off from the world. Of course, we weren't cut off. My phone was blowing up. Every time a new photo went up, my mother would text me. Then she'd text Alex. Then she'd call me. Then she'd call Alex. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion. She couldn't stand the fact that we were together, alone, and that she wasn't the one being looked at. Emma, honey, one of her voicemails said. Her voice sounded thin and sharp, like a knife scraping a plate. I just wanted to check in. It's so cold in the mountains this time of year. Are you sure you're okay? You know your skin gets so dry in the cold. You should really be careful. Also, tell Alex I found that book we talked about. He should call me. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. The fun mom mask was slipping, and underneath it was just a woman who was terrified of being forgotten. When I finally returned, on Monday, I went straight to my mother's house. I wanted to see her face. I walked in and found her in the living room, surrounded by fashion magazines, but she wasn't reading them. She was staring at her reflection in that big mirror again. She looked tired. Her makeup was a little too heavy, like she was trying to fill in the cracks that the stress had carved into her face. "Oh, you're back," she said, her eyes flicking to me for a second before going back to her own image. "How was the little trip?" "It was perfect, Mom," I said, making sure to sound extra happy. He's amazing. He told me this weekend that he's never met anyone like me. He says I'm the most real person he's ever known. I saw her jaw tighten. Real. That's a nice way of saying plain, I suppose. I didn't let it hurt me this time. Maybe. But he likes real. He said he's tired of people who are all show and no substance. He said most women his age, and even older, are just trying too hard. It's a turn off for him. That was the bait. I saw her eyes flash. She didn't say anything, but I knew what she was thinking. She was thinking that she wasn't like other women. She was thinking that she was the exception. The next day, Alex sent the final hook text. He showed me the screenshot while we were having lunch. Alex to Patricia. "I can't stop thinking about what you said, Patricia. You're right. Emma is great, but there's a spark missing. I feel like I have to perform for her. With you, it feels like I can just be myself. I'm free on Thursday at 2 p.m. That bistro on 5th. Let's talk. Just us." My mother's reply was almost instant. Patricia to Alex. "I knew you felt it too. It's our secret, Alex. See you then. Wear that blue blazer. It makes your eyes look like the ocean." I felt a wave of nausea. The ocean? Seriously? Alex laughed and wiped his mouth with a napkin. "She's really leaning into the soap opera vibes, Emma. This is going to be a bloodbath. Are you sure you're ready?" "I've been ready for 10 years, Alex," I said. Thursday came, and the air felt heavy. I felt like I was walking toward a cliff, but for the first time, I wasn't the one being pushed. The bistro on 5th was one of those places that was way too expensive for what it was. It had white tablecloths, waiters who looked like they were judging your shoes, and a lot of large potted plants that were perfect for hiding behind. I got there 20 minutes early. I wore a hat and sunglasses, sitting at a small table in the very back corner, hidden behind a giant fern. At 1:55 p.m., Patricia arrived. I actually gasped when I saw her. She hadn't just gotten dressed. She had gone to war. She was wearing a white silk dress that was almost bridal, with a slit that went way past her mid-thigh. Her hair was a masterpiece of curls, and she was wearing so much perfume I could smell it from across the room. She walked in like she owned the building, checking her reflection in the glass door before the waiter led her to a table in the center of the patio. She sat there, poised and perfect, checking her watch every 30 seconds. She looked like a woman who was about to win a prize. At 2:05 p.m., Alex walked in. He didn't wear the blue blazer. He wore a simple black t-shirt and jeans. He looked casual, almost bored. As he walked toward the table, I saw my mother's face light up. She stood up to greet him, reaching out both hands. She looked like she wanted to pull him into a kiss, right there in front of the lunch crowd. Alex sat down, but he didn't take her hands. He kept his arms crossed. I was too far away to hear every word, but I didn't need to. I knew the script. I watched as Patricia started her performance. She leaned in, her voice low and husky. She touched his arm. She laughed that fake, tinkling laugh. She was doing everything in her power to reel him in. At one point, she reached into her purse and pulled out a small gift box. God, she'd actually bought him something. She pushed the box toward him, her eyes wide and pleading. That was my cue. I stood up from my table. My heart was pounding, so hard I thought it might burst through my ribs. I walked slowly across the patio. The sound of my heels on the stone floor felt like a drumbeat. Patricia didn't see me at first. She was too busy gazing into Alex's eyes. "Mom," I said, my voice clear and steady. She froze. It was like someone had hit the pause button on a movie. Her hand was still resting on Alex's arm. Her smile didn't just fade, it curdled. She turned her head slowly, her eyes wide with shock. "Emma, what are you doing here?" she stammered. She tried to pull her hand away from Alex, but she was so flustered she accidentally knocked over her glass of water. "I could ask you the same thing," I said, looking at the white silk dress, the gift box, and the way she was draped over my boyfriend. "But I think I can see exactly what's going on. It's not what it looks like." Patricia cried, her voice going up an octave. She looked at Alex, silently begging him to help her. Alex and I we were talking about your career. He wanted some advice on his acting, and I thought, "Stop it, Mom," I said. I pulled out a chair and sat down right next to them. "Just stop. You're not helping her with my career. You're trying to steal my boyfriend." "Again." "That's a lie," she shrieked, her face turning a blotchy red. "I would never do such a thing. I'm your mother. I was just trying to see if he was good enough for you. I was testing him. I leaned back and looked at Alex. "How'd he do on the test, Mom? Did he pass when you sent him that bikini photo last Tuesday? Or did he pass when you told him I was plain and boring?" The color drained from Patricia's face. She looked at Alex, then at me, then back at Alex. The realization started to dawn on her. You told her," she whispered to Alex. Alex finally spoke. He didn't sound like the charming, smitten boyfriend anymore. He sounded cold. "Patricia, I told her everything. Every text, every call, every creepy little secret meeting request. We've been laughing at you for 3 weeks." The silence that followed was deafening. A few people at the nearby tables turned to stare. Patricia looked like she'd been slapped. "Laughing," she repeated, her voice trembling. You were in on this?" "Of course I was," I said. "Did you really think a guy like Alex would fall for you? Did you really think you were that much of a diamond compared to me? He's 28, Mom. You're 52. And more importantly, he's not even into women." Patricia blinked, confused. "What?" "I'm gay, Patricia," Alex said, leaning forward with a smirk. "I have a boyfriend named Marcus. We've been together for 2 years. Emma is my best friend. The only reason I'm here is because she told me how you've spent your life trying to destroy her happiness, and I wanted to see it for myself. And honestly, it's even sadder than she described. I watched my mother. For the first time in my life, I didn't see a goddess. I didn't see a queen. I saw a middle-aged woman in a dress that was too tight, sitting in a puddle of spilled water, looking absolutely pathetic. You set me up," she whispered. Tears were starting to smudge her perfect mascara. "My own daughter. You humiliated me." "No, Mom," I said, and I didn't even feel angry anymore. I just felt tired. "You humiliated yourself. You couldn't let me have one thing. You couldn't just be a mother. You had to be the star. You had to prove that you were still the hottest person in the room, even if it meant breaking my heart." I reached into my bag and pulled out a stack of papers. They were printouts of every text she'd sent to Alex, Tyler, and the guys before them. "I'm moving out for good," I said, placing the papers on the table. "And I'm going no contact. I'm blocking your number, I'm blocking your social media, and if you show up at my work or my new apartment, I'm calling the police." "Emma, you can't," she sobbed, grabbing my arm. "I'm your mother. I love you." "You don't love me," I said, pulling my arm away. "You love the way I make you look by comparison. You love having a plain daughter so you can feel beautiful. But I'm done being your prop." I stood up. Alex stood up with me. "Oh, and Mom," I said, looking down at her. "The dress is a bit much. You look like you're trying to find a husband at a funeral." We walked out of the bistro without looking back. As we hit the sidewalk, the sun was shining, and the air felt incredibly fresh. I took a deep breath, and for the first time in years, my chest didn't feel tight. "You okay?" Alex asked, putting an arm around my shoulder. "I'm better than okay," I said. "I feel light." "Well," Alex said, checking his watch, "Marcus is waiting for us at the bar around the corner. I think we earned a very large drink. Or 5. We walked down the street, laughing and talking. I didn't check the mirrors in the shop windows as we passed. I didn't care what I looked like. I didn't care if I was plain, or sparkling, or anything in between. I was Emma, and for the first time, that was enough. Back at the bistro, Patricia was left sitting alone at the table. She reached for her compact mirror, habit forcing her to check her face. But when she opened it, she didn't like what she saw. She saw a woman who had finally run out of luck, and a daughter who had finally found her voice. The game was over, and Patricia had lost everything. For more stories like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to get notified when another video drops. See you in the next video. Peace out.